Hi. Hello there. I'm Marian Peppelmeyer, and I'm with the Columbus, Ohio Igniting Soul chapter. And our guest for today's interview is Renee Vidor, and she is an up-and-coming author. She has spent hours pouring into a lot of research into her book, which is called Measuring Up: How to Win in a World of Comparison. And she's quite a woman who's accomplished a lot, and she has a lot to say about the area of comparison. So let's get to know Renee. Some of you have seen her already. She's on stage when we can meet in live, and when Carrie Oberbrunner can, with a Igniting Soul Tribe / Author Academy Elite / BAE, is able to hold the live fellowship meetings that gather. Well, Renee is the one that you see on stage introducing Carrie. And we were joking earlier, she's like the Vanna Red, because she has red hair, of Igniting Souls Fellowship monthly meeting. Monthly meeting. So, okay, I've done a lot of interviews today, guys, so forgive me. Anyway, it's all good. So Renee, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how long have you been in the Columbus area? And I know you have children, so.
I do. Sure, I'd love to. Thanks so much for interviewing me, Marian. I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed getting to know you over the last couple of years here. I have been in the Columbus area for, goodness, I guess it's been about 16 or 17 years. I'm from Ohio, just about an hour north. And I moved to Columbus after I met my soon-to-be husband. And we have two children. We have a 15-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl. And that has been, if most of you are from somewhere in the Columbus area. So if you're familiar, they're in Dublin School area. I'm over by the zoo, so it gives you an idea of where I am. And I've been with Igniting Souls, I know you're talking about that, for about 5 years, I think 5.5 years. It's been 5 conferences ago. And that's been something that has been part of my journey. I know that we all are on a journey. And that's been a large part that has helped me to make some pivots and learn so much and meet so many amazing people. So that's been a huge part of my journey.
Wow, amazing. You said 5 years ago?
Yeah, it's been, I think it was 2000, it was the end of 2014. Yeah, when I first joined the Deeper Path was the first program that I was a part of, and then eventually became certified in that, and then Your Secret Name, and have moved through and really enjoy getting to learn and getting to know others and growing personally.
Amazing. So early on, knowing Carrie Oberbrunner and about the Author Academy Elite and the whole community that's been developed over the years, that is amazing. How did you ever discover it? Looking back 5 years, I guess we still have the technology. We had the Facebook ads. We had a lot of avenues, but how did you stumble upon it?
Well, I think I had a little bit of an advantage because I had actually met Carrie in person before knowing anything about, actually before he started Igniting Souls as an entity. He was a pastor at a church that is very close to where I live. So when my husband and I were changing churches due to just God telling us to go in a different area closer to home, the church that he was pastoring at was one of them that we were looking at, and we were bouncing back and forth trying to find out where we were supposed to be. So I did get to meet him. I got to hear him preach, actually. And it was because we had many common connections on Facebook. In fact, my mentor and coach, who is a published author and does, she's one of the larger women's Bible study book writer, author, all of that. She speaks with Aspire Women. She was connected with Carrie, and because her husband is the pastor of the church that we ended up going to.
Mm.
So there was just a connection, and Facebook would show me all of the things that he was doing, I guess. And at that point in time, the fellowship was not open. It was only for people who were clients, only for people who had been in the programs. So it's not the same as what it
Mm.
was then. Now it's better now. But he would allow on in December. He would open it up for anyone to come, and I saw that it was open, and I saw the topic, and it was about clarity or something along those lines. It was a topic that I was very interested in.
Mhm.
So I went, and that's how I got to know him, and the rest is history.
Right. And now all of us get to know you and get to know you and have you be a part of our lives and our own professional growth as authors or entrepreneurs. So it's a real blessing. It goes every which way. So you
Yes.
are, I understand that you are finally, as of today, your book is in which phase?
As of today, Measuring Up How to Win in a World of Comparison has the interior design completed through Author Academy Elite, and the cover is complete. That's been done, but the hardback cover had a few things that needed to be changed, and so that's where I'm at right now, is with the designer back and forth. And because they're on the other side of the world, it takes about a day in order to go back and forth. It's been interesting, but it's good. It's really good. So I am right now preparing for the launch, and I am putting together a launch team and getting ready to, most likely, because as you know, if you're watching this pretty soon after it's recorded, we're all in quarantine and we're not really allowed to make plans to get together till who knows when.
Right.
So in June, I'll just be doing I shouldn't say just, because it's going to be fantastic. I will be doing a virtual launch, and then I'll do a live rendition later.
Mhm. So how can people in our chapter, because one of the things that we discussed in our very first meeting, which was face to face, which we haven't been able to do since then, it was right before all this happened in our nation. We all had agreed we really wanted to support one another,
Mhm.
and instead of meeting just once a quarter, we all wanted to meet once a month. But in addition to that, we really wanted to come alongside other authors. So I know at my book launch that occurred in November 10th of last year, I was blessed. I had 10 Author Academy elite authors come.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was, they served as hosts, book table people. Um, Dow Tippett was which I met at the fellowship, the Wednesday
Yeah.
fellowship. Um, which for those who are local, when it starts up again, if your work schedule or your business schedule for business owners, just carve out the time if you can, because you'll make friendships for a lifetime. And that's what happened. They all showed up at my book launch. So I want to, as the first chapter leader for Columbus, I wanted
Yep.
to have that same rapport, that same community to be built up among each other so that we can do the same. And I know another author who's already been interviewed, because of the coronavirus, has postponed his book launch until the end of August. And for those of us who can, we want to be able to participate in his. But hers, she's going to go ahead and do a live, um, what do you call
Virtual.
virtual book launch. And I think that it would be really wonderful for all of us to be able to get your details on it and to participate in it. And it'll be a learning function for all of us. How do we do these things? How do we do a virtual book launch or a virtual book event or virtual anything? And it'd be great to come alongside and support her. So um, how can we stay in touch, or will you post it in our Columbus chapter Facebook thread? For those who may not be aware, you became members through it, but we have a thread going on, of which I hope that authors will be and BAE students, members, whatever, will be able to post. things where we all can participate and support and post your questions too. But so Renee, how can we best get into your loop on that so that we can really help you?
Yeah, and that's a really good idea, by the way. And just seeing how as AAE and even just people who are involved in igniting souls, it doesn't mean you have to be an author or whatnot. We all can come together and help each other. And so I would be honored if anyone was interested or wants to come alongside and just kind of like watch, or if you want to do more than that, then of course I would love it. But right now, what I've been doing is I've been building just an email list that is not very, doesn't go out very often, I will be honest. But that's at reneevidor.com/book. And if you go there, you fill out a form. It's just literally put in your name and your email address. And if you want to stay in the loop that way, that's great. You can always email me, Facebook message. I was probably faster. I'm not the best at email. But just look me up. I mean, I'd love to be Facebook friends with anyone who I'm not. I've looked through the chapter and I think I'm friends with almost everybody on there. So I'd love to get to know those that I don't know yet as well and support you. So that would probably be the best way, is just let me know what your interest level is and how you'd like to go about that and how I can help you as well.
Okay, repeat that email address again, since we don't have subtitles.
Yes, it's Renee, Renee, at simplyenrich.com, SIMPLYENRICH.com.
So they can all email you to be able to get put onto your book launch list, correct?
Yeah, you can email me if you want book updates. You can go to reneevidor.com/book.
That's it.
And
reneevidor.com. Okay, /book. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So your book is, I think, very pertinent to today. I think we needed it decades ago. I could have benefited from it decades ago. And how to win in a world of comparison. And would you, why don't you cover it? Tell us a little bit about it. I know that it's very important in today's world, and especially among women, but I know men get in the trap of comparison too.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, they would probably call it competition, whereas us women call it comparison. So
That's a good point.
Yeah. But you finished your book already. So
yeah, that's in there. And you have a really good point. When it comes to comparison in and of itself is not a male or a female issue. It is a human issue. And if you go as far back as whether or not you're a person of faith, but if you look at the story of creation, you'll see that comparison was actually the reason for the fall of mankind. And that goes to the serpent asking Eve, so do you want to be more like God? That's what this fruit is going to do for you. And she thinks to herself, yes, I want to be more like God. And therefore she eats the fruit and passes it on. And when you think about it, at the root of most decisions, we compare, and it's not always a bad thing. I think that's something that's a little bit different about what my take is on the topic of comparison, is that it's not always bad. It's not always wrong. What is wrong and what is a problem is that we give comparison power and control. So that is what you're going to find that's different. And how you can win in a world of comparison is by weighing the cost. That's the W, allowing yourself to learn and find out what about comparison, what is it that's, how much of it is actually hurting me and how much is helping me, and how can it help me more instead of hurt me? How can it be beneficial instead of detrimental? And then after you weigh the cost and you find out the different areas of comparison, there's 3 different areas. There's assets, appearances, and achievements. So out of those three different areas, which ones are you struggling with most? Which is going to be your roadblock most often? And for myself, it was appearances. That was where I was finding myself just typically tripping over that roadblock because I felt like I could never measure up. I just wasn't at a point to be able to look good enough, to be good enough. And there's, of course, a lot of story behind all of that, right? We all have our stories. We all have our reasons that we are struggling in the areas that we struggle. And so after you weigh your costs and you find out where you're tripping on comparison, the I for win is to innovate your identity. And this is probably the most important. This is like the beef in the middle of the sandwich.
That's interesting how you call it innovate your identity.
Correct. And you know, here's the thing. We're all born with an identity. So we could just be like, oh, you know, like learn who you are. But there is an aspect to our identity that we actually get to innovate. We are not just this cookie cutter. We have free will. We have the ability to express ourselves. We have likes. We have things that we prefer, and that's okay. It's part of who we are. It's part of who we were created to be. So to innovate your identity means that you take a look at who you are right now. What's your current ID? What's your current identity? Or maybe you have a lost identity. It might be your ID may have been stolen from you. It could be past abusers. It could be from past coworkers that you felt just really tore you down. It could be that you have pretty much given up your ID and you're like, you know what? I don't even care anymore. But finding out who you are and learning more about your own identity helps you to innovate it to where you're able to learn who you're created to be, and then also put with that your flair of just being able to express that in a way that is really important to you. And until you do that, you don't really have a way to measure up, because until you have your innovated identity, you're measuring up, if you want to call it that, is against everybody else. So, you know, like we're looking at a Zoom right now. And I know, Marian, I'm going to use this. I know that you'll be okay with it, or else I wouldn't say this. I promise I'm never going to throw anyone under the bus. At the same time, when we were talking before here, we were talking about lighting, and you were saying, okay, I've got a new lighting thing and it just doesn't quite seem to cut it yet. Mm-hmm. And, you know, your lighting right now looks better than mine. And you know what? If that was our measuring stick, which it's not, because Marian knows her identity and she knows she's already innovated her ID, I'm sure. And she knows that that is not what her measuring stick is. It has nothing to do with lighting. But she's able to use that comparison in a way to say, you know what? There's something I might be able to learn or change, or at some point I can do something a little different, which is the same thing I had to do because I actually didn't have good lighting for a long time, and I did the same thing. So that's what I mean by able to innovate your identity and learn how to measure up the right way. Mm-hmm. So we can weigh our cost, we can innovate our identity. But then what do we do with that? We have to navigate our journey. That's the end. So by navigating our journey, that means that we are going to be able to take proven methods and tools, behavior modifications, all of that in order to implement who we are and be able to measure up the right way. So to give a little example of that, for instance, most people will start with this, and this is why they can never stop comparing. They'll start with something like, hey, I'm going to go through my Instagram and I'm going to cut out all the people that make me compare myself to them. Okay, you could start with that, but if you've never done the groundwork behind that, then it's not going to stick. You're not going to have the mindset ability to further your journey. It's just going to be one little thing that's not going to really help you fix it. And guys, here's the real thing is that we have to win on a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis, sometimes a minute by minute basis, but we have to choose to win. We have to choose to allow comparison to be something that we are in charge of instead of it in charge of us. So it's not a one and done. Winning is something that's on a daily basis.
That's interesting. I never looked at it that way before. One, you brought up the innovating your identity, which we can. I know I've morphed over the years, you know, we're all in the process of change, but actually to really be able to innovate. So I take it your book will deal and help people through that. Like, do you have tools that you plan on giving them to figure all of that out?
Yeah, there are sections that talk about that give some examples, that give some specific experiences and exercises to be able to go through and help with that. And also there'll be more material that you can go to the website. And of course, I'm putting together, as you know, AE will always tell you, a book is one thing. It's not a transformational thing. It's kind of like opening up to an idea. Mm-hmm. And the course that I am putting together for people to be able to measure up and win will have more interactive, and will make it easier to be able to really innovate your identity. But there are definitely exercises and helps within the book.
And then your last part, that was N was for navigating, correct?
Yep, navigate your journey.
Because as you were just speaking, and I'm hearing, you know, I've known you've been writing this book, but you hear this much content and depthness to it. This is, I think, really amazing, because you bring up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, as you say, comparison started way back. It is a human nature. Now, what you're saying is, okay, you're going to compare yourself anyway, but here's how you can navigate when you do, or here's what to do when you catch yourself doing it. Is that, am I heading in the right direction?
Absolutely. Yeah. To navigate your journey, it means that no matter what, you're going to be able to, you're going to look at comparison differently. Once you start realizing how, like you said, it is human nature. It's a part of who we are, and it's not all bad. I mean, God compares. All right. You look through the Bible, you're going to find comparisons. You look through history, you're going to find good people comparing. Why? Because it's part of what we do, and it's not all bad. But again, being able to navigate your journey means that you are in charge. You're behind the wheel, and you'll find all throughout the book there's a metaphor of driving. So basically, comparison's trying to steal your wheel, but you need to make sure you put comparison where it belongs, either in the back seat or kick it out of the car sometimes, whatever that means. And you need to stay in control. And then I give some different elements that you can use for even navigating your journey. There's your GPS that you can use. You can call AAA, and of course it's not the American Auto Association or whatever. It's a different AAA, but all of that metaphor to help you be able to navigate your journey so that you're in control of comparison and using it to your benefit.
Wow, what a valuable, I can imagine that you could probably take this into high schools and youth groups. Have you ever thought about that? What?
I would love to believe that. I'm going to be very real with you, because I feel like that's the right way to be. And authenticity is key to being able to measure up. So this whole concept really began with my daughter. At the time, she was in 5th grade. And she would come home from school, all her panties in a bunch, saying like, this girl, she wears braids and she thinks she's so cool and blah, blah, blah. Just all this comparison. And it brought me back. I was remembering, I think we all can think back to either grade school or middle school. Oh gosh, middle school. And we can think about how we felt, especially as girls, but I know boys too. It's different. It's in a different way. You might be thinking more of your sports, how fast you could run, whether or not you could beat up another kid. I mean, it's just different, right? But when it came to my daughter, I realized that this was a topic of comparison that was really on my heart, and I needed to do something about it. So when I had the opportunity with AAE to write the book, and I was down to the last minute, I'm like, all right, this is it. And I didn't have the answer yet put into a method or a form, but I had already done a lot of the work in the process. I had had my own journey and struggles, and I had been working through this, and we're all in a journey, and I'm continuing to work through it. So I went ahead, and as I was putting it together in the book, and I feel like God was kind of writing the book with me, even though it's a secular book, it's not faith-based per se at all. I realized that this is something that should be taught to all people. Well, guess what? I started utilizing some of those key points with my daughter and with other young people. And something started to come to me, and that's the fact that you have to have a rational mindset to be able to do most of this. A lot of this is emotional intelligence.
It is.
Much of this is something that you're going to have to use your prefrontal cortex. And unfortunately, at a younger age, that's not quite intact. In fact, for some, it's not until you're 25 that you're really able to utilize that part of your brain. So I don't feel hopeless. I don't feel like this is like, oh, there's no way that I can help anyone younger. But what I do know is that I've been able to team up with another gal who she's the founder of Role Model Magazine. And she has a heart and a talent and skill to really work with the younger people and the younger women and girls and help them learn how to be role models, while I'm teaming up to help the parents and the moms that she is working with. So even in working together, I believe that as you watching this, as you, Marion, as myself, as a parent, as an aunt, as whoever we are in the community, as we are becoming, as we're measuring up properly and we're getting in control over comparison, we're role models to be able to help the younger generation. So it's taught, but I will say just reading this book so far, and I've done a little bit of research, like I've had some college students, it's been great in that area. But for younger, I'm not sure yet. I can't attest to that being the case.
Not quite yet. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm sure that you'll be given strategies and ways, and as you say, collaboration, which I was glad that you brought up collaboration, because part of all of who we are in the Igniting Soul Tribe is that we get to collaborate with one another. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to encourage our chapter all the time. If you're thinking you're sitting alone writing a book, struggling, or trying to reconfigure your business because you're in BAE, you're not alone, and reach out for help, because you're going to find people within the tribe that have been there or who are there right now, and you can collaborate with them. And that collaboration, the encouragement of collaborating together is so key and important for all of us, and actually for those that have your message and your common link message. So that's encouraging to hear. I know that we had talked a bit about women in the workplace, busy with comparisons. I shared with Renee, I came out of the corporate world. I've been in the banking, well, that's the corporate too. I've been state government world. I've been in actually elected public office before, a nonprofit. I've worked in all these sectors, and believe me, this is a huge problem, even among, if you want to call it, the most holiest people that you can hang around.
Yep.
It is.
I'll tell you, even within, I lead a women's Bible study, and a while back, there were a couple women who were like, I don't pray as good as she does, so I don't want to pray out loud. Like it doesn't matter. It's the smallest of things to the largest of things. We compare ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Well, Renee, during this time and season, is there anything else, a wisdom that you'd like to share? Because we could go on forever. This topic, it is amazing what you've been able to draw out, and through your research and life experience, you're actually touching base on a subject that before this, I wouldn't have even have thought of reading a book about comparison.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I don't know if I would have,
Sure.
but and maybe a lot of men out there, because we we have men in our chapter, and Men, I think, compare differently. They'll say they don't compare, but
Yep.
subconsciously, I believe they do, and I know that they think differently. But so I know that this book is going to be good for everyone, no matter where they're at in their journey. And especially among authors, I'm going to go back to, I felt like a little fish in the sea when I first went to the fellowship meetings.
Aw.
And that was comparison, who am I? I knew my identity. I knew what I was called to do, but when I was faced with this room full of people, I've been out of the corporate world for like 8 or 9 years. All of a sudden I felt like, oh my, who am I to write?
Aw.
Oh my goodness, they've already got their book published. Oh my goodness, they already know their VPS statement. Now that's more what I want to call it, inside wording for those who are going through the Author Academy Elite program or the BAE, but that's value proposition statement, like who are you, what are you doing, and how do you help people, statements, and I'm there thinking, I know what I'm going to write about, but I don't know how to express it, So I figure I can't be the only newbie, and I'm not so new now. I've been with AAE now over 2 years, and but we tend to do that. So a word for the younger authors, younger not meaning age-wise, but newer authors on board. What's your worded advice for them so they can stop comparing themselves? I know I compared my progress all the time, like I'm way behind. I had setback after setback happen in my life. I had a bad accident right after I started writing the book. I was in pain for like 6 months. I could barely write for 2 hours a day. I wasn't sleeping at night. And I just kept pressing through. So we all have these, but it caused me to fall in that comparison trap. So, which was not healthy for me. So, if there's authors out there that were in my position, what can you impart to them to encourage them?
You brought up a really good point about staying in community and making sure. I believe that one of the most important, I'll say tips, but really just lifelong learning lessons is the more authentic we are and the more that we are willing to be vulnerable, there are people who really do want to help. There are people that really care. And sometimes we're too afraid to put ourselves out there because we're thinking, oh, they're going to judge me, or I'm going to look stupid, or, all these different things that we believe that are sometimes they might have a little bit of valid truth to them. We might really feel stupid. But in the end, does that 1 minute of feeling dumb, which you're not dumb, none of us are. We're writing books, for goodness sakes. If we're authors, we're not dumb. But if you even feel dumb for that 1 minute, isn't it worth it? Isn't it worth being vulnerable? Because you don't know who else is watching. You don't know who else is learning from you. And it may not be brave enough or bold enough yet to ask that question or to reach out. So I just want to challenge each of you all, and myself included. I tell myself this all the time. We were created to be who we were created to be. Don't be embarrassed of that. Don't be embarrassed of the progress or the lack thereof. Because as long as you are continuing to do what you're designed to do, it's all good in the end. So be who you're created to be and do what you're designed to do. And if you don't know what that means yet, seek it out. It's really important, especially as you start on writing a book or building a business. It's super important, and it does impact the rest of your career. So the rest of your life, whether or not you're writing a book or doing a business, it's still important. But be authentic, be vulnerable, be willing to fail, because those fails are actually wins in disguise. I think that's kind of what you were alluding to, Marian, too, is like, even though you were going through a hard time, my guess is those hard times actually built you up to be able to finish writing your book in a way that you wouldn't have had the same story.
Mhm.
Every time, every minute, every progress that we feel like has been a setback, I know for myself, when I look back, it was actually designed that way.
Mhm.
And as long as I'm not giving up and I'm continuing to move forward, it's all good.
Right. It is all good. Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, when I came out with my book, I realized you said it so well that through the hard times, because it took me forever, I had to get an extension on my coaching for my book. So
Me
you did
too.
too.
Mm-hmm.
It was worth it because I realized that my book, had I written it one direction, wouldn't be what it is today.
Yeah.
And I feel that what it is today is what it's supposed to be, and so forth. So for all of those out there, never give up. Just
Don't.
keep on. So wow. Well, thank you, Renee,
Thank you
so
so
much
much
for
for
your
having
time.
me on.
Oh my goodness, we cannot wait to hear your details on your book launch. We
Thank
want to
you.
know how to become part of your book launch Facebook group, whatever you're doing with that.
Yeah.
Keep us posted. And because we do all want to come around and support each other. And we're
Yep,
going to
same
call
here.
them field trips. Like if you were doing a live book launch, we would have a field trip that month as a
Okay,
group
that's cool.
to
Yeah.
come. Yeah. So since you're going ahead and doing it before we're all opened up to come, or because of it, you don't have the time to plan,
Yeah.
hosting a live event, we do want to come alongside and support you in any way we can. And anyone out there who's listening who has, realized that comparison has been one of their traps and ruts that they keep stumbling over, um, get a hold of her book and stay in touch with her, because what she is developing, she's developing a community of women, which we didn't adequately cover, but that's in her website. She's developing a community of women where women can come together. She's already held one mastermind where women can totally be real and upfront, and really going over some of these things that she discussed and even more, and where they can express themselves and get answers and get help and assistance and encourage one another. And such a need today. So Renee, we all just can't wait to see what's going
Thank
to
you,
happen.
too.
You're welcome. Thank you so, so much. And we'll talk to you soon. Okay?
Forward to seeing you all soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.